Good morning, everyone. You may be seated. As Elder Peter said, I'm going to be speaking to you today about the effects of parental involvement in student achievement. Now, if I were sitting in your seat right now, I would be thinking one of two things. One would be, I don't have any children, or I don't have any school-age children. How many of you don't yet have children? Don't yet have children. How many of you no longer have school-age children? Okay, very good. The second thing that I would be thinking is, I have children, and I'm very involved in my children's education. So what more can you say to me at this point? So I would be thinking in one or the other camp. So let's see if we can answer some of those questions today. We all know that families and schools have worked together since the beginning of formalized education, and even before then, in order to make sure that the children had the best education. But things have changed, and we want to take a look at how things have changed and what effects that has on our education. The next slide simply says, why should we be concerned about student achievement? Now, remember, we've got several groups in the audience, but I believe that we should all be concerned about it. And so we're going to talk about why is that necessary. The next slide, we want to tell you why. This specific slide talks about the state of illiteracy in our nation. And if you can take a look, these statistics are from 2000 to 2003, and you can imagine where they are right now. This is the most current. There are some statistics, it depends on who does the study as to what they are, but this one was the most consistent that I could find. And if you take a look at it, the illiteracy rate has been slowly improving from 6.09 in 2000, and it's gotten down to 5.56 in 2003. Now, what's the challenge? It has been improving, but what's the challenge there? Look at the percentages. It hasn't been improving very rapidly, would you agree? So we still have a big problem, because if you look at that, even though it's been improving, that's still over 10 million people that are considered illiterate. And we're not talking about functional illiteracy where they can read the stop signs. We're talking about just illiterate. So that's a big challenge for us, for everyone. So, and you have to know this, the numbers aren't correct. This is census data, and you know we do sampling and all those kind of good things. But you have to know, this doesn't include the people that are detained, okay, let's say in jail. It doesn't include the people that are homeless, and any special circumstances of special needs children. It doesn't include those types of people. So can you imagine, this is the state of our nation. Now, we're saying, okay, well, that's the nation, but we're San Antonio, so what's going on here? Let's take a look at the next slide, and let's look at San Antonio. You see anything? I heard somebody go, ooh. San Antonio's rate is more than double that of our nation. San Antonio's illiteracy rate. Now, why is that? That can't be, and we can't let that happen on our watch. Now, it's been fluctuating back and forth, but I mean, to say our literacy rate in 2003 was 12.47% and the national average was 5.56, there's something wrong. And we all need to do something about this. So what's happening, and what is this costing us as a nation? Let's take a look at the next slide. Now, here's where the rubber meets the road. It is costing us $25 to $30 billion per year. That's in our pockets, our tax money, to take care of this issue of illiteracy, whether it be education, whether it be taking care of people in healthcare, because they can't do what they need to do, they can't fill out job applications. It pays to have a good education. It pays to have a good education. That, according to this study, based on the numbers that you see, the study was done to say, okay, if we're going to improve this at the rate that we're improving, how long would it take us to get this right-sided, so to speak? It would take 3 decades at the rate that we're improving in order to get this right. 3 decades is too long, guys. So we have to do something now. So good education does pay. Let's take a look at the next slide. And I'm not sure that you can see that. If you've seen it before, it just talks about, on one side, if you have from less than a high school diploma all the way up to a doctorate, what your average pay would be. And on the other side, if you have those degrees or that type of education, what unemployment rates would be. And this is a 2011 statistic. So let's take a look. If you had less than a high school diploma Doesn't mean that you're in this category, but this is typical. Your unemployment rate at this point would tend to be about 14.1%. The higher you go up, the less likely you are to be unemployed. And you're saying, well, Anita, I know there's PhDs that are unemployed. We know that. The world is the world. Things happen. But the likelihood is a lot less. That's what we have to look at. So the question that I would have is, where do you want your children on that ladder? Where do you want the children, the students in our community on that ladder? See, because if they're not working, what are they doing? If they're not working and they're not in school, what are they doing? You can answer the question in your own mind. So the illiteracy rate tells me something about some of the other things that are going on in our community. Why is it that San Antonio has the highest rate of abused, abandoned, and neglected children? Things start tying together, don't they? So while a higher education is no guarantee, we know this, it tends to make it easier to find a job and keep a job. So let's take a look at how did we get here? Because that was the question I wanted to know. How did we get here? Well, there are certain errors in education, and I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with these. But the first stage was called the permissive error. And in this era, the first education law enacted by Massachusetts General Court was this. They mandated that parents and guardians of children make certain that their charges or their children could read and understand the principles of religion and the laws of the Commonwealth. They mandated that you read your Bible, that you understand how your children knew how to read their Bible. Now, why is that? Can anybody answer me the question, why did they want everyone to be able to read their Bible? I heard it somewhere. So they won't be lawbreakers. You know what? That is so perfect, Deacon Carol. Because when you violate God's law, at least no one can tell you right from wrong if you knew the right that was in that Bible. So that was the goal. And guess what? When people started reading their Bible, the illiteracy rate was, it was nowhere near where we are today. So that was one. And then Benjamin Franklin founded private schools, and there were other private schools that started. And then there was an increase, a beginning of public schools coming into the influx. But here, the whole era was marked by this, and this was from 1642 to 1821. This era was marked by this one thing, and I need you to remember this. It was marked by complete parental authority. Who were the children's first teachers? The parents. Who should be the children's first teachers now? Still the parents. But sometimes I feel like we've given up our rights and our role, and that costs us. So we're going to talk about, let's look at the next era. The next stage was the encouraging era. And during that time, the U.S. Census revealed that only 1 in 10 people identified themselves as being illiterate, but there became a mistrust of parents. Isn't that like the devil? Isn't that like the devil? A mistrust of parents spread in the educational leadership. Wow. How can we go from complete parental authority to this subtle seeds of mistrusting parents? So here was what happened with the mistrust. And I want to read this quote to you because it's important that you know. It says, mistrust of parents spread in educational leadership as exemplified in the Massachusetts Teachers article. This was an article published. It said, in too many instances, the parents are unfit guardians of their own children. The children must be gathered up and forced into school. What does that sound like to you? So it's still marked by parental authority. Notice that I'm no longer saying complete. Still parental authority, but the children, and at that time they were not compelled to attend a public school, but you can hear the seeds that are being sown, right? Let's look at era 3, or stage 3, the compulsory era, and I'm sure we're all familiar with this. Influence over children education shifts from parent to governmental authorities. And if we look in history, anytime we shift something from the private sector to the public sector, it doesn't work anymore, guys. There are some instances in which we're really good, but in the majority of it, it's not. This era is from 1855 to 1980s. It's marked by a decline in parental authority. Children of certain ages were compelled to attend school. They had to, or somebody's going to jail. So, and in certain states, it was illegal for children to attend non-governmental schools. So if you started a religious school, it was illegal in certain states for them to actually go there. You started a private school, it was illegal for them to go there. Because remember, there was a mistrust of the parents. We don't know what we're doing, and the parents are starting these schools, and the private people are starting. No, we want the government to take care of us. Even if you could afford to pay the tuition, they didn't want them there. So, seeds being sown. So this era is marked by a decline in parental authority. Children of certain ages, and at that time it was from 6 to 13, were compelled to go to public school. So I'm going to call it government schools. Here's the era that we're in right now. From the 1980s to where we find ourselves today, it's called the freedom or school choice era, and you'll hear more about that today. Where we now have educational options from homeschooling, which in some countries is being outlawed. In some places, some states were trying to do it. We have vouchers, we have tuition, tax credits, scholarships, all kind of things that we have available to us in certain states. And, wow, sometimes we give up so many of our rights, guys, and we're lulled to sleep with what's going on in the system, that we let some of these things kind of go by. There's a vote up for vouchers and we don't show up. We say we care about it, but do we actually show up? You have to show up and be present. So this whole era, in my opinion, is marked by mediocrity. I'm just sorry. It is. How can we dump millions and millions and millions of dollars in a public education system and Johnny can still come out not being able to read? Something is wrong with that. Something is wrong with that. So while this era is marked by an increase in parental authority and options, guys, we have to take our authority back. We have to stand up and we have to be heard. Because I'll tell you what, I was going to hold this, but I feel it right now. If you don't decide what to do with your children, if you don't decide what to do with the kids in your community, somebody else will. They absolutely will. And there's a spirit, and I'm going to call it a spirit of, oh, just take care of me. I don't want to have to think, oh, but we better. Or we'll find ourselves back. Just history repeats itself, guys. We'll find ourselves back in a place that we don't want to be. So, who should be concerned about student achievement? You tell me. Who? Everybody should be concerned about student achievement. Flip to the next slide for me. The parents, the guardians, the grandparents, don't give up on your grandchildren. Be involved. I know you are. Educators, administrators, student mentors. I mean, I get a kick out of telling the students at the school, have you talked to Elder Yates? Why would I talk to Elder Yates? I said, you do know he has a background in civil engineering, right? You should see their faces. Have you talked to Brother Malloy? Have you talked to Deacon Evans? See, guys, it's more than just the people that are parents. You have something to offer. There are things that these students are interested in, and we are the vessel of the information, and we need to be able to share. So you just reach out. So there's student mentors as well, our local school board members, community leaders, and all leaders, as a matter of fact. See, the parents and the students devote all this time. They want something back. They want something intellectually. They want it to turn into an economic gain for their student, right? Of course. Teachers and administrators, I'm telling you, we spend a lot of time trying to figure these kids out. Why are we trying to figure them out? We're not psychologists. We want to know what is the way that this child learns so we can get the best out of them. The to educate means to draw out. It's more than just dumping something in and pouring something in. We're trying to draw out what God put in them. Taxpayers, you saw that dollar amount, right, for literacy. Listen, that's not what we want. We want better students so that we can realize safer communities, more productive communities, and things of that nature. And the business sector has gotten on board. I know I talked to Sister Renolda, and Sister Renolda works for USA, if you don't mind me saying I just did. And she is a corporate trainer. That's my title for her. And she is saying, I asked her, I said, tell me about the young people that are coming into the workforce right now. She's saying, oh my. She said, technologically, they are savvy. And we don't despise that. We love that. Technology is wonderful to me if you use it in the right manner. But while we're on the technology bandwagon, we can't lose the human side of us. So these students can't, and I love you ladies, can't look people in the face. They can't hold a conversation. So how are you having people come into the workforce, 18, 19, 20, 25 years old, and they cannot hold a conversation? How are we going to compete in the world? Are we who we say we are? Are we really still number one? Yes, we are. But I think we need to get back to where we used to be. We need to take that technology and we need to balance it with what we used to do. So the next slide says, what you've already said, that everyone should take ownership in literacy. Let's go to the next slide. Because I believe that family and community involvement in Christian education is the answer to illiteracy. And we're going to improve student achievement when we are all involved. Let's turn to the next slide. So what are the benefits of family and community involvement? Now these are not some things I sat down and went, let me think, what are the benefits? Anybody could come up with this. But these are this is documented research. It says, it's quite simple too. Isn't it always the simple things? Students do better in school and in life. They just do. They're proud of who they are. Parents become empowered. I don't like it when a parent drops their kid off at school and you never hear from them until the end of the school year when little Johnny has problems. You can't, it doesn't work like that. Parents need to become empowered in the decision making. And they don't need to be intimidated by educators or administrators. These are your children. You know them better than anybody else. Doesn't matter if you don't understand the educational lingo or the political lingo. These are your children and you know what's best for them. So we need to make sure that the parents become empowered. Teachers' morale improves. When everybody's involved, little Johnny's mom shows up for parent-teacher conference night, woohoo! When they don't show up, how are we going? It takes, you know what, there's nothing like a two-legged stool. It just doesn't work. You have to have the three legs. So the parents have to show up and the teachers have to be present. Schools get better, and more than that, our community gets better. And that's what we're after. Let's look at the next slide. Well, Mayor Castro had the same idea, hey? He knows what's going on out there. So I believe he just recently unveiled the SA 2020 project. And these are the things that he's saying, look, San Antonio, we're going to be world class. Forget, I know what's going on right now, but we have to do something about this. So he is willing to take action. So the San Antonio's City Council endorsed this San Antonio 2020 project, and here are all the things that he said that we needed to do. Kindergarten readiness, college readiness, third grade reading, increase high school graduation rates, and increase college enrollment. It's wonderful. They've got benchmarks and timelines and all these kind of great things, but you know what it's going to take? It's going to take all of us. It's going to take all of us. All of this information, thousands of San Antonians gave their input on it, but I'll tell you what, it's going to take the whole San Antonio village to make this happen. Okay? So it's not a pipe dream, it can happen. And then I read an article the other day and I said, oh, wait a minute now. So San Antonio's doing this, now Austin's on the bandwagon. I said, okay, now Austin, you feeling a little threatened? Okay, you'll be all right. So on the next slide, we're going to talk about what will it take to improve student achievement. And I say this lovingly, it's going to take more than donuts with dads. It's going to take more than showing up at the Thanksgiving dinner with the parents and the kids cry if you don't show up as a parent. You know, it's going to take more than that, guys. So there is a comprehensive partnership that we need to form. First, it's parenting. Families helping their own children at home and at school. And it sounds oversimplified, but it is simple, but it is necessary. It's simple, but it's necessary. And we find that when we start talking about parental involvement, people have different ideas of what that is, and it's okay. But you have to be involved at some level. Whether you won't show up at school because you don't want to see those teachers, but you're helping your kid, making sure they get that homework done, that's good. And then there's a time when parents feel a little bit, that's that new math. I don't think I can help you with that. You know what? It doesn't matter. I figured out much after I was older, my mom didn't know any of the work I was doing. But she didn't tell me that. I thought she knew. She said, you sit down there and you make sure you get it done. Then she'd check it over and go, And I said, and this is why this is so important to me. And for those of you that feel that way, whether your aunts, uncles, grandparents, Let me just give you a little snapshot into my life. My father has his master's degree. My mother didn't finish 6th grade. A lot of reasons. My mother's from Louisiana, and she told me stories that would break my heart because her heart was to finish school. And she said, but you don't understand. You guys think I'm stupid. I'm like, no, Mama, you didn't think you were stupid. You were helping us with our algebra. We didn't know you didn't know it. But what she would say was, I would try to go to school. The school was across the tracks. And at that time, young girls were being raped. They were being molested. Young men were being hung. So my mother said, I couldn't chance it. Although I wanted to go, I couldn't go. Now, my mother's not illiterate. She reads, writes. I mean, she does all those things. But her desire was to go farther. So that's why I don't play with this thing called education. Because you have people that want to, and people that couldn't, or people that can't now. And we take it for granted. We take it for granted. So we have to parent. We have to communicate. Parents, pick up the phone. Teachers, call. Grandparents, get involved when the parents are not involved. Do what you have to do. Volunteering, like I said, means more than donuts with dad and showing up at the Christmas play. You have a right to be involved in what's going on in the school. Some decision making you need to be involved in because you know your children. The learning at home, we've talked about that. Decision making and collaboration with the community. The community, the business leaders, you have resources that these children have and these children need. You have information that the kids need as well. So let's all be in on this. So how are we going to bridge these gaps? Well, I found this quote, and I thought it was perfect, and I added something of my own. It says, school choice, and I'm going to add Christian education, bridges these gaps and returns education to its American roots. What are its American roots? The empowering the parents. Regardless of your economic circumstances, regardless of your education, regardless of anything, whatever you know, you can help with the freedom and the opportunity to choose a better education for their children. That's what it's going to take. It's going to take us standing up, doing what we know is right, getting engaged in the system with your children. Don't just drop them off at school and show up in May or August when they get out and then be happy when summer's over saying, oh yeah, you're going back, okay? We have to be involved. And don't feel like you have nothing to offer because we all do. And I'll tell you this again, if we don't get involved, for those of you who don't know, there is a move to globalize education. I didn't say nationalize education. I said to globalize education. And if you could hear the things that they want to teach our children, people are giving up their citizenship in certain countries because they don't want their children to learn the things that the government in that country has decided they have become criminals because they are not allowed to homeschool their own children. So it's bigger than just San Antonio, a little competition with Austin, a high literacy rate in the United States. It's bigger than all of that, guys. We have to wake up, and we have to be concerned about our neighbor, and we have to be more concerned about our own children. Thank you for your time. The last slide has where you can download this presentation if you like it, and thank you so much for your time.